Hey, it's your guy Tyrrell back with the interviews. In today's video, we're going to briefly analyze how Pedro Goncalves has developed into one of Europe's young promising footballers. So in today's video, first we're going to briefly analyze Pedro Goncalves' role at Sporting, and then we'll focus on his key strengths in Sporting's 3-4-2-1. So when we break it all down and we do look at the board, we have Sporting in a black kit just to ensure that their green doesn't clash with the field. And what we end up seeing is that they do start in a 3-4-2-1, and that allows the wide center backs to cover space for the wing backs that are supposed to push forward to provide the width, and that results in the two behind the striker operating as inside forwards. What you end up seeing from Pedro Goncalves in this role is that he is adopting a position where he does take out the center back and the left back if the side is playing in the back four. And in terms of his overall role, he's looking to get on the ball in pockets of space between the lines, or he's shifting laterally into central positions to receive the ball in those zones. But what you end up seeing is that if he's playing in that role against a back four, what he can do is drop off into that gap between the central midfielder and the left-sided attacking player, and he's looking to pull out the left back, and if he's not pulling out the left back, then he receives time and space to look for the runs of his attacking players or the wing backs pushing forward. Against Benfica, you could see João Mario on the ball just ahead of the halfway line, and focus on Pedro Goncalves dropping off into that midfield zone between the lines. João Mario plays that forward pass that finds him between the lines, and now you can see he has three options ahead of him, two that are making runs in behind, but because the center backs don't apply pressure, it allows Pedro Goncalves to carry the ball towards the Benfica penalty area, and because those center backs still don't step as he gets within 20 yards, it allows the Sporting attacking midfielder to fire a low effort on goal that hits the post. Here you can see Cabral dropping off the ball to Pedro Goncalves in the halfway circle, and when the Sporting attacking midfielder receives the ball, look at the pressure ahead of him. What he does well here is that he's able to evade two challenges to place himself ahead of the Braga backline, but his only option ahead of him is Cabral within close proximity. Rather than playing that pass, he continues to run at the center backs, and it places him in a 2v4 position, and because there's no other runners joining the attack, what he opts to do is that he beats the initial press that is placed ahead of him, and then it places him in a 1v1, and the only real option that he has here is to push the ball beyond his marker into left half space with a burst of pace, and he does that well, and he ends up firing a low effort on goal that the keeper saves. In the build-up to Sporting's winner against Porto, it's Coates winning the ball in his own half, and he instantly looks to bypass the Porto midfield bank to find Pedro Goncalves dropping off in between the lines to receive the ball. As you can see, none of the Porto center backs step to apply tight pressure, and that allows the attacking midfielder to turn with the ball, and he locates the Cabral run in between the Pep and Bemba gap, and he slides the ball into that zone to place Cabral free on goal to win the game for Sporting. If he pulls out the left back, that creates space for his wing back to push forward. And what's good about Pedro Goncalves is that he's very good in terms of dealing with pressure, and he's able to retain the ball and link play with his teammates. This is an example of Pedro Goncalves dropping off into the midfield zone to get the ball, and he's receiving it from his left back, and when he does receive the ball, as you can see, there's no pressure on him, and that gives him time and space to receive the ball, look forward, and then switch play out to the right-hand side to the wing back. Here you can see Portugal bypassing Spain's press, and it's due to Pedro Goncalves dropping off of his marker into his own half to receive the ball. And as you can see, because the pressure isn't tight, he receives time to control the ball freely, and he simply drops it back towards his center back, and that helps Portugal carry the ball higher up the pitch. Once again, as Sporting look to advance play, you could see a pass from midfield being played into Pedro Goncalves dropping towards the halfway line, and once again, Vertonghen isn't tight on him to apply pressure. When the attacking midfielder receives the ball, he anticipates Vertonghen stepping towards him late, and as you can see, there are several Benfica players within close proximity, but he does well to hold off Vertonghen's challenge, retains possession, and then he locates a teammate in between the lines in the halfway circle, and that's when he plays a splitting pass between two Benfica midfielders to play the pass into Paulinho, and that results in a free kick that's won due to a late challenge. Even in situations where that pressure does force him to concede possession, he does a very good job of working hard to track back and help his side win possession. Against Spain, you could see Unai Simon looking to clip the ball over Pedro Goncalves into the path of Jose Gaya. And when he plays the ball in towards the Spanish left back, focus on Pedro Goncalves tracking back to look to close him down. Because Gaia does hesitate, you could see the attacking midfielder looking to continue his press to get back into position to win the ball. And as Gaia anticipates that pressure, he ends up looking to flick the ball over Pedro Goncalves' head, but the Portuguese attacking midfielder does well to brush off the left back, and he helps Portugal regain possession due to his work rate. What you also end up seeing was that if he's playing in that role against a back four, he's looking to make those runs in between the center back and the left back gap, and at times he's looking to just simply peel off that back four by making runs off the left back, whether it be through the inside or the outside to break in behind. Sporting's front three is very flexible, and there are times where they do end up swapping positions. For the most part, you will see Pedro Goncalves operating in that central role if he does leave the right. And what you end up seeing from there is that similar to that right-hand side, he's capable of making runs across the center back into that gap between the center back and the left back, or you'll see him making runs off the center back to break in free on goal. So ultimately, what you end up seeing from Pedro Goncalves is that he's looking to drop off into those pockets of space, like I said, and if he can receive that ball in that space, he's looking to play in his teammates, and if they're not making runs, then he has the capability of holding off pressure and carrying the ball towards the back line until they apply pressure, and if they don't, then he's looking to get a shot off on goal. The way opponents will look to combat that is by looking to match up Sporting by playing a back three as well. And although there are various shapes that they could play to stop Sporting, what you end up seeing is that at the end of the day, it is a 3v3 up front. And the Sporting attacking midfielder's ability to drop off his defenders to receive possession often presents a threat to the opposing backline. Because what you end up seeing is that he's looking to drop off into that midfield zone to receive the ball, and if the center back doesn't step, he's able to receive it freely and then look to dictate play or create chances for his teammates. But his goal is ultimately to drag out the center back. That creates space for runners to break in behind, but he's capable of linking play if that pressure is tight to ensure that his team retains possession. Following Sporting winning possession, focus on Pedro Goncalves dropping off into his own half to drag away Vertonghen to receive possession. When that initial pass is played, what you end up seeing is that Vertonghen doesn't stick tight with Pedro Goncalves, and he ends up allowing the Sporting attacking midfielder to turn freely, and he locates a gap between the Benfica left wing back and Vertonghen, and that's where he sees his teammate making a run into the right channel, and he ends up splitting both Benfica defenders to place his teammate free down that zone, but the Benfica left wing back does a very good job of tracking that run, and he makes a last-ditch tackle to halt the counter. Here you can see Sporting looking to break on the counter, and the first pass is played into Pedro Goncalves, who's occupying Vertonghen just beyond the halfway line. What the Sporting attacking midfielder does well here is that he holds off Vertonghen and he drags away Verissimo, and that allows him to play a first-time pass into the path of Nuno Santos, who's free out in that left channel. When he plays the pass into that zone, that drags Verissimo to the ball, and it creates a gap for Pedro Goncalves to run off Vertonghen, who's caught tight on him, and it allows him to break into the left channel to ignite that counterattack. As he chases the ball forward, now he's looking to play a first-time ball into the path of Paulinho, but because Vertonghen doesn't get tight on him, he ends up taking an additional touch. And when he looks to play that ball into that zone, it's Otamendi who makes a last-ditch tackle to deny a tap-in. Then here we could see Nunes carrying the ball forward from the midfield zone, and once again, it's Goncalves dropping off deeper to drag out Vertonghen, but he locates the run of Nunes off his midfield marker, and he simply plays a first-time ball square into the path of Nunes as he takes Vertonghen out of the game, and as you can see, that allows Nunes to now carry the ball forward, and it drags Grimaldo out of position as he now has to track the run of the Sporting midfielder, and that break is simply built off Pedro Goncalves dragging out Vertonghen to create space. At the same time, he's also capable of varying his movement or just shifting away into pockets of space to receive the ball. If he's dropping off, there are times where you will see him shifting just a bit to his left so that it does create a passing lane for him to receive possession, and if the center back isn't tight, then that gives him a second or two to receive the ball, look forward, and then make his next move before the pressure is applied. In the build-up to Sporting's opening goal in their 4-3 loss to Benfica, you could see a Sporting midfielder carrying the ball in towards the final third, and that's where you see Pedro Goncalves dropping off ahead of Vertonghen. As he looks to carry the ball forward, he drags out pressure towards him. As Nunes carries the ball in towards the final third, he drags away a Benfica midfielder, and look at Pedro Goncalves shifting laterally across Vertonghen, and that allows Nunes to play the ball across his marker into the path of Pedro Goncalves. As you can see when he receives the ball, there's a run being made in between the center backs, and Vertonghen isn't tight on him, so although there is pressure behind him, it allows him to drag the ball towards his left, and that pressure from behind isn't able to make a successful challenge. And because Vertonghen doesn't step, it allows him to get the ball onto a shooting foot, and that allows the Sporting attacking midfielder to narrow the scoreline. So as you can see, if Pedro Goncalves maintains his form from last season, his impact in the final third makes him a viable asset for teams around Europe aiming to bolster their front line. Hi everybody, thanks for watching, and subscribe here for your latest tactical analysis and daily commentary on the InnerViews show. And if that wasn't enough, don't forget you could find more organic, unfiltered soccer/football analysis on the InnerViews podcast, the best soccer/football podcast in the world, available on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, and any Android apps on your Android devices.